Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. We have a few attendees not joined yet. We'll give it about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we'll get started so we can get you out by lunchtime. Thanks. All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get started with the presentation. Today we're going to be showing you Municity 5, which is the building planning zoning software offered here by General Code. Just for a little bit of background, my name is Tom Baumgartner. I work for a company called General Code. We've been in the business of codification and publishing municipal codes for over 55 years. In the early 2000s, we started moving into a different sector with document management and code enforcement software. So with that said, Municity 5 is our offering for code enforcement software. It is developed by a company called Software Consulting Associates, or SCA for short. They're based out of Red Hook, New York, which is a little bit south of Albany. They've been developing versions of Municity and code enforcement software for close to 30 years as well. And combined, we've got about a little over 200 customers. Some of those managed by us, some of those managed by SCA. But I should tell you that we are the only reseller of the Municity 5 software. So again, my name is Tom. I'm one of the project managers here at General Code. I do a little bit of help desk as well. So if you have any questions following the presentation, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I will put up my email address and contact information in the PowerPoint after the presentation so you can reach out if need be. That said, we'll go ahead and get started then with the demonstration. So Municity 5 is a cloud-based application. No local installations that you have to manage, no hardware that your IT has to manage, networking issues, things like that. We take care of it all. So accessing Municity is fairly simple. All you need really is a Google Chrome browser, and then you would navigate to www.municity5.com. Once there, you're prompted with the sign-in, where each user then would enter his or her own secure credentials. So we'll give that a minute to load here. I apologize for the internet speeds. Sometimes with the webinar software on the computer here, it can slow things down, so we'll give that a minute. There we go. All right, just going to put in my credentials and move into our demonstration site here. All right, so we have logged into the Municity software. First thing you'll notice here is that we're presented with a search screen or a search window that's going to give us access to all of our different records here. Our default search is going to be on a property record or a parcel. Throughout the presentation, I'll use property and parcel synonymously, so that they mean the same thing. But if I hit this drop down here, you'll see that opens up all of our different record types that we can search for. And we'll talk about some of those in turn as we go throughout the software. You'll see we have several different modules on the left-hand side. We'll be touching on each of those as well as time goes on, but to start with, a property record is going to be a good place to get a lot of different information and kind of the central location for a lot of different things in Municity. So at its heart, Municity is a land management or property management software, and then corresponding with all of that, you have your permitting records, your code enforcement records, violations, complaints, things like that, inspections, planning and zoning projects, everything that would go along with the property to give you that full property detail and property history. So just showing how the search works here. It's pretty flexible. I can put in something as generic as a name, like a Smith, and you'll see it will pre-populate some Google-style, predictive search results here. If I wanted to, I can put in a property ID, a tax map number, block and lot, depending on what you call it, or an address. But I can just hit search here, and that will show us our list of results. In our results list, you'll see we get some details about the property itself, and then some icons indicating some of the activity at a glance that's happened on the property. And you can see if I hover my mouse over those, we get the different labels for those indicating some of the action that's happened here. But I'm going to double click on one of those rows and open up the property and show us some of the information that we have here. So I've got my property record open, and this is a window that's going to be pretty uniform throughout the program. So as we go through the presentation and you see different screens, you'll notice things are laid out pretty consistently, making things easy to use, easy to navigate. There's no real special skill needed to update one type of record versus another. So the idea is if you can read and you have access to information, you should be able to make any changes or take any actions that you would need to do without any special training. So looking at our property record here as an example, you'll see the screen is broken down into three different sections primarily. So we have our overview, which gives us access to a lot of our different assessment data. So we've got our owner information, we've got things like property class, zone, valuation, year built. Below that is where we can make changes to that information if we need. So we've got our different editable fields. So if at any point I need to make a correction or make a change or anything like that, I can just tap that information in. I've got my Save Changes button here. What's really nice about these fields is that they can be categorized into different groups. So you'll see as I toggle back and forth between these different groups. My fields do change here dynamically. So those can be customized for different users. So depending on your use and your need, you can see different fields. We can hide fields depending on your level of access. We can make things read-only, etc. The other nice thing is that we have the ability to create custom information. So at any point, if you have a very specific piece of information that you would need to track on a property or on a permit, things like that, we have that ability here. We can add checkboxes, maybe if this falls within a flood zone or archaeologically sensitive zone or wetland or something. We can add date fields, custom drop downs, all kinds of different things to tailor it to your liking here. And then to the left-hand side, we've got our navigation pane. So we'll touch on a few of these here. Contacts being important. Items are going to show our property history. And then media would be where we can attach and upload any plans, drawings, pictures, and the like here. I will mention that when we do the property import for any new customers and new clients, we are able to get that information from your assessment office, whether it be a local assessor, county, maybe an outside agency or GIS firm that has that data. So we pull in owner information, of course, your assessment information. And then going forward, as you start using the software, you can certainly manage ownership changes and changes to assessment data yourself, or we can integrate with your existing assessment software. So RPS in New York is very common that we integrate with. But if we're able to get files from your assessor or the county, if you're in another state, we can do automated updates with a separate utility that we have. So users aren't having to manage those changes and ownership changes themselves. And we can update those on a daily basis, a weekly, monthly, whatever you prefer. All right, going through some of then the different things that are going to be accessible on our property. I'm using this navigation pane on the left-hand side. Our contacts are going to show us anybody who's involved in the property. So of course that's going to be our owner information. But you'll see we have another box here where we can keep track of other individuals as well. So we can add trustees, we can add lawyers, emergency contacts, things like that. The really nice thing about this is we can add essentially any number of contacts that we want just by hitting this Add Contact button. That opens up an internal, Rolodex of sorts in Municity here, where we keep track of all of our different contractors, owners of other properties, architects, lawyers, anybody who's done business with the community at any point. We would log them in, and they would be searchable. So if I do something like I'm just going to grab a name I have prepared here. We'll say Jerry Horn. We're going to add him. So he's been added to this property record here, and then I can right-click, and we have something called a role. So what that does is it defines how that individual is attached to the property. So maybe we're going to say he's going to be our garbage collector. And that way you can add as many individuals as you want, or companies as you want, and we can see here we have the definition for each of those. So we're always able to know who the primary contact person is. But again, if we have other individuals, we can definitely manage those as well. Skipping down to media briefly here. This is where we have the ability to attach, as I mentioned earlier, plans, pictures, drawings, CAD files, emails, essentially any type of file that you would use in your office. We have the ability to upload to our property record. And you'll see this media section throughout. So as permits are issued, you can upload plans. As applications are going on, you can do the plans with inspections. Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry about that. Our marketing guy just came in here. He said people are having a hard time hearing, so let me move over to the regular phone, and hopefully that's a little bit better. So as I was mentioning here, in case you didn't hear, talking about the media section, that's just an area where we can upload plans, pictures, drawings, CAD files, really anything that you would use that would be associated with a property or a permit or an inspection, anything any kind of supporting information that you might need. So adding that media is really easy. I can just hit this add file button here. That opens up a dialog box on my computer where I can upload a plan, hit the upload button, and then I have that file available to view. So it opens it up in a nice little PDF viewer. I can add some notes if I want here. I can download this as a file into, either as a PDF or into whatever native program it uses. And then also if you have, a plan review software like a Bluebeam, for example, you can download that into your Bluebeam software, make your plans and revisions, and then re-upload that with that revised copy, or with that marked up copy, I should say. Moving on then into our items. This is where the bulk of our parcel history can be found. So you'll see we have a number of different categories corresponding to each of the different property records or types of records that would be found on the property, and with little numbers in the parentheses indicating how many of those are existing or open. So before we talk about permits and some of the different actions that can happen on the property, I do want to mention how we manage multiple tenants on a property. So that would be done with this occupant section here. So you'll see when I open that up, I can have different records for all of the different either businesses, buildings, tenants, things like that that might be on the property. So it's very handy when it comes time for strip malls, or if you have like an office park or something like that where you have multiple addresses that you need to manage on a property. This is really handy in that you can have the occupant or tenant name, the different address, and you can see we have an area for occupant type as well. So you can designate, what type of occupant, tenant, store this is here. And if I open one of those up, you'll see the layout, again, is consistent with what we've seen before. We can have additional contacts. So if there's a manager that we would need to keep track of, we can add him or her on there. And then that occupant would have its own items. So we're able to, instead of, issuing a permit or a violation to the whole property, we can get a little bit more detailed and issue a violation maybe to just the tenant, or if the tenant is changing out storefronts or they're doing an awning, we can give that tenant the permit rather than to the property owner. So it just organizes things a little bit better and makes it a little bit easier to manage and a little less messy going forward. And it's nice that, especially when it comes to violations, what is affecting one tenant or business isn't affecting everybody else on the property. So I'm going to close that record here. So why don't we take a look at some of our different record types here, and we'll go through the process of issuing some of those different things. So if I scoot down to the permits section, you'll see that has our permit history here with some quick hit information, different types of permits, the description, status, dates. The nice thing is all these columns are sortable. I can just click on those column headers, and you'll see those get sorted here. So if we want to, say, issue a new permit, I would just hit our Create Permit button. And we get a nice little wizard that walks us through the process. So this is designed to get all of the necessary information, the absolutely necessary information up front. And then later on, you can add supplemental and additional supporting information here. So in the wizard, it's fairly straightforward. We would just choose our permit type. So we've got our list of permit types here, and I'll take this opportunity to mention that as part of the implementation process, we do sit down with you several times. We do some on-site meetings to figure out what types of permits you do, what types of certificates get issued for each of those. Are there inspections required? Are there sign-offs or plan reviews required? All of that is configured ahead of time. So by the time you go live with the software, you're hitting the ground running, everything is configured and ready for you. So there's no additional configuration that you have to do. related to that. We also do convert any old data that you have. So if you've got permit records and spreadsheets, or if you've got an Access database or another system that you're using currently, 99% of the time we can retrieve data from that system. We manipulate it in a little bit and then import that into Municity. So you're not having to maintain those two systems. Again, when you go day forward with Municity, all of your previous information is in the system, and then Municity has also been configured so you're ready to go on day one. So back to our wizard here. I'm just going to choose a building permit type. We can leave our status as pending if we're just in the application phase. We've got areas for application date, permit expiration date. We can calculate that automatically. We have areas for our construction costs. So we say this is, say, $20,000, $20,000. Our square footage is 2,500. Then we have a description area where we can note the scope of the work. So if we say addition to rear home, bathroom, something a little bit more specific than building residential. As I move down the wizard here, you'll see we have an area to capture any context that would be available, or I'm sorry, that would be involved with the permit here. So Municity will assume that the owner is involved in some capacity, but then if I hit our add contact button and just do a search for any other contractor, I can do that. I'm just going to grab one at random here and add that individual to the property, or I'm sorry, to the permit. There, if we need to update phones and emails, we have an opportunity to do that. You'll see the role is spelled out again here, so we know Raymond Smith is our owner, but Brett Smith is going to be our contractor on this application. We also have this applicant checkbox, which is nice in that it lets us determine who is going to be the point person for this application. For instance, who's getting our mail, who's getting the notices, emails, all of those different things here. And you can add as many contacts as you want to the application. So for larger projects, of course, you might have a contractor, maybe a plumber, an architect as well. You can add all of those individuals as well, and that stays with the permit for the lifetime of the permit. Down below that, we have an area where we can add fees. So if we just choose, again, our fee type here, we'll say this is an addition fee. This can be calculated based on our square footage. Say it's going to be based off of 250 square feet. Municity will do the math for us and figure out what the amount should be. Then we can just note the payment type, check number if we want. It's going to plug some information there. And again, we can add as many fees as you want. There's an opportunity to pay those in bulk. So if one check is paying all the fees, you don't have to type that in for each fee. Municity can help you out with that. Down below that, we have an area for inspections. So as I mentioned earlier, part of the setup process here is determining what inspections and what sign-offs go with each permit type. So when I chose my building residential permit type, it knows that we have so many inspections that would go with that. So Municity will set those up as a template. So those are available. We know they're required at the time of application. We can remove from this template if we need, or we can add additional at any time if we see fit. And then finally, we have an area for tasks. And what this is where we would manage our different plan reviews. So, of course, when an application comes in, it might need to get routed through the building department or the inspector to do the reviews. It might need to go to planning, or maybe the zoning or fire department here. So we can set a due date for that. Say, give a week for that to be reviewed. We can assign that to a user. So if I assign it to that individual there, we can have Municity send out an email to that user, letting them know that there is a plan that needs to be checked. They would get an email with a link to the review here, and they would just click that. It brings them to the appropriate spot in Municity where all of that then can be viewed, updated, and managed. So once I hit create, that's going to open our permit record here. We're just going to skip ahead on those reviews. If I go to my items on the permit here, under my tasks, I'm just going to update that really quick so I can so I can issue my permit. So review complete, no conditions. And you'll see how easy it is for me to add notes if need be. And again, we have that media section where if we need to add plans or pictures, we can do so. But for the time being, we're just going to skip that just for time's sake here. So going forward, throughout the process, once the permit is ready to be issued, we would change our status to permit issued. And that's going to give us a permit number, the issuance date, and again, it's going to calculate out an expiration date based off of the permit issuance date there. From there, we have the ability to print out building permit placards and documents. We'll give that a second to load. Again, I apologize for the internet here. Let me maximize that. So this is just a sample form that we would have here. You'll see it captured permit number, property information, all of the different individuals that are involved with the permit. And then we have some zoning, plans received, etc. And then our fee information. So again, when we do the implementation process, we sit down with you, to figure out what you want your printouts and your documents to look like. So if there are, forms that you like and you're really attached to, we will recreate those. So those would generate out of Municity. If you want to start from scratch, we have plenty of samples to choose from, and we can build something out for you. So there's a lot of different options there, depending on how you want to do things. But when we have a document that we're ready to, send out to the resident, we can print that. We can download it as a Word file if we need to make changes, or we have an option to email that as well. So once we hit email, that'll open up our local email client and send that document out as an attachment to whoever our applicant is. And the same thing can be said for certificates of occupancy, application sign-off forms, things like that. This print menu, can be pretty encompassing depending on what we would need to generate out of the system here. Just skipping ahead in the process, we're not going to go through every phase, of course, here, but you'll see we have the area for all of our inspections. So when say somebody calls up and they're ready for their foundation inspection, I can open that up here, and I can assign that to our users or to our different inspectors. We can give that a date. We can give it a start time if we want, or we can say all-day event, which means we'll get to it when we get to it. And what's nice about that is Municity also has a calendar that we can check our schedule against. So you'll see we have our list of all of our inspectors here. I can toggle back and forth between different days, months, and you'll see we have all of our inspections right on the calendar. And if I'm an inspector, I can come back into the office at the end of the day. I can just click on my inspection right from the calendar. I can update the status, update my results here. We'll just do something generic, inspection passed, and then hit save. And then that's complete. So updating an inspection as an inspector is fairly simple, as you saw. It can be done in just a few minutes, depending on how fast you can type. Of course, we do offer a mobile application as well. Just for time's sake, we're not going to show you that today unless somebody asks for it. But just know that all of the same information would be available in the mobile app. And it is designed for inspectors. It really has the calendar up at the forefront. So at any point, an inspector can open up an inspection, record his results, take photos with his phone or device, and attach those immediately and directly to the inspection record. Just for your reference, that is what we say is device agnostic, meaning it doesn't matter if it's an iPad or an Android tablet or a phone. Really, if it's any kind of modern tablet, it'll work. We even have it running on Microsoft Surface tablets out in the field in some locations. So to shift gears a little bit here, I do just want to close out my permit. And why don't we talk about the violation process really quick. So I've gone back to my property here that I'm just working on as an example. I'm going to go back into the items and go to the complaints section here. So permitting and complaints being the two, real hot ticket items that every municipality does. Those are the things we like to touch on here. So generating a complaint in violation is fairly straightforward. Again, we would just hit the create complaint button. That opens up our wizard here where we're able to go through the necessary steps to generate that complaint. So from here, I can choose a complaint type. We'll say work without a permit. Under the description, we'll say maybe while on inspection, inspector noticed dumpster inquiry found permit was not issued. All right. And then again, we have our context here. So we're always able to see who the property owner was at the time of the violation. So we're not involving, future owners and things like that. We're always able to tell who was involved when. From there, we just have a little questionnaire. Municity wants to know, was an inspection performed? Of course, we have to go out and verify that. So we'll say, yes, it was performed today by our friend Don Ram here. And we're going to give them 2 days to correct. And our results, again, in this case, since it's work without a permit, would mirror what our description was. Do we want to schedule a follow-up inspection? Sure. I can hit yes here, and it automatically creates a follow-up based on our days to correct added to the original inspection date. Then we have an area where we can cite specific violations. So if I hit this yes button here, I can hit add violation. And what that does is it actually opens up specific sections of the code where we can cite those in detail. And those are searchable. I can hit permit. Maybe that will narrow this down, or see if we have something a little bit more generic like fence. We can just grab one. I'm going to grab it at random. And you can add as many violations as you want. So in the case of like a property maintenance complaint, maybe you've got junk vehicle in your yard, you've got broken windows, your siding is falling off. You can cite violations for each of those, all under the umbrella of your initial complaint here. Some of you may also know general code from doing your municipal code. You may have heard of the Eco 360. Since we have that, that's a huge advantage. We're able to grab that code from the ecosystem and import that into Municity too. So we're able to make the two work seamlessly. You're not having to manage the two separate applications in order to retrieve that code. So once we've got our inspections figured out here, our violation set, we can hit create. That's going to create our complaint record here. Depending on what our process is, we can print out a notice of violation. And similar to the building permit here, this is just a customized form that we would create for you, capturing the necessary information here. And you'll see we've got the cited section of the code that we're able to print right on the document. So that can be sent or emailed out, and then any follow-up steps can be taken from there. In this case, our complaint type is work without a permit. So depending on how your community does things, you may need to issue a stop work order. So again, right on that complaint, I can go to the items section here, and we have an area for stop work orders. So if I want to issue that, I can just hit create stop work order. We'll say in there work without a permit. That's open, and say see NOV for details. So we can create that stop work order. Again, we can print that out, tack it to the home or the property where the work is happening, and then be on our way. And that's just a sample form that we've got here. So going back to the complaint here, we'll see we have a lot of different things under the umbrella of that initial complaint. So we've under items, we would see we did issue a stop work order. We've got a violation that's been created from here. We've got all of our records of inspection. So we have that initial failed inspection. We have our follow-up that we can update if time goes on and we need to update that, or we do our follow-up inspection. You'll see we also have an area here for summonses. I'm not going to get into it now because it can go a little bit into the weeds, but we have the ability to issue appearance tickets and then track those summonses and court appearances. So that would have your docket number, the time of the appearance, who the officer was, and then any result from that. So if there's fines that have come as a result, if there's a conditional discharge, all of those different things would be able to be managed there. So you have all of that information all under the umbrella of the complaint, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for all of the activity that's happened with that violation. And then managing the complaint then is fairly simple. Once everything has been resolved, or depending on what's happened here, you would just change the status. Maybe it was unfounded, maybe it's been closed, maybe it's been referred to a court or another agency. That can all be managed here. All right, so I'm going to close out my complaint, close out this permit, and we'll shift gears a little bit here. I'm going to minimize my search. A few things that are important to every community are going to be your advanced searching and reports. So let me show you that. So we have a reporting module here that, as the name suggests, allows you to report on any different record type in the system here. So reporting is fairly simple. You just come in, choose your report. So we'll do something like a financial here. Give us our start date. I'm going to back it out a few months to get a little bit more detail, and hit run report. That's going to give us a nice form here that itemizes each of those fees. In the case of a fee report, gives us check numbers, amounts, paid, unpaid, the date, any associated permit number. Let me make that a little bit bigger here. So that'll itemize all of that. And then at the bottom, we have our summary. So counts and subtotals for each of our different fee types. If there are different account codes or GL codes, it will subtotal and sum those as well, and then our payment types as well. So this is something that can be sent off to a finance office, on a weekly basis here. They can take that account information and balance their books, and then you're on your way here. Similarly, we have a permit report, complaint reports. We set you up with a fair amount of reports right out of the gate, but we have the ability to customize reports. So if you need additional information, columns, additional data, we're happy to create something for you here. So you'll see this is the same kind of deal. It itemizes each of those permits and then gives us totals based on the permit type, including our construction cost, fee total, all of that information. And then we have subtotals for each of our different statuses. I know in New York, in Ohio, at least the requirement is that you need a year-end report indicating all of the different construction categories, things like that, summing all of your fee totals or fees accepted, your total construction cost. This will help you out in completing that form. And then we can actually, create the report to look exactly like your form if need be. The nice thing about these as well is you can export, you can print this form out, you can email it, print it, do whatever you need to do here, and then all the raw data is captured as well. So these can be exported to Excel if you want to do some advanced charting or import it into another system. We're happy to provide a flat file as well. So there's a lot you can do with the data once it's all been aggregated here. Our other reporting tool is going to be our console. And you can think of that somewhat as an advanced search. So if I pull up, say a permit record here, we've got all of our different categories for our different record types along the top. We can do advanced searches based on our permit type, our status, date ranges, permit numbers, description. So this is a little bit more flexible. If you only know, maybe give me something that's like, shed is the description. That'll give me all permits where it contains the word shed. Maybe if the permit type isn't shed. You can also run reports on when permits expire. So say, give me everything that's expiring in these couple months here. That'll give me a list of all permits that are expiring. And what's nice about that is we can hit this print button. And if we want to send out a renewal letter, we can do that. And that would do somewhat of a word mail merge. So it gathers information from each of these records here, puts them onto a document. So if you're doing, like contractor renewals, or if you have upcoming inspections, maybe you have annual inspections that need to happen, Municity can send out, notification documentation for each of those, saving you a little bit of work and saving you the hassle of, trying to gather all that information. It can do a lot of the legwork for you. And then, of course, say you've got your permits that have all reached expiration or reached their expiration length. If you want to update those, you can hit this bulk action button. And what that does is it allows us to pick a field, maybe our permit status, and then we can change the status of all of those right on the spot here just by hitting update. So if you need to make bulk changes, it's really easy. You saw I can just did it in a couple minutes here. And those rules can be applied to pretty much every record in the system here. So permits, of course, complaints, inspections, there's a lot of different things you can do here. I'm going to minimize this for the time being and then show you the final reporting tool that we have. That would be our dashboard. So what this is somewhat of an individualized report here. So this is really designed to help people who manage inspections and plan reviews and things like that. What the dashboard can be done, or what the dashboard does, is it can be configured to show different item types here. You'll see I have inspections and tasks. We can set up filters similar to how we did with the console. So give me all tasks or reviews of a particular status, date range, etc. But the nice thing about that is that those filters are sticky. So every time I open up my dashboard, it will remember my previous search, and it updates automatically. So these are all tasks that are assigned to me as a user that need to happen. So I need to review all of these different permits. So it shows me every task that is pending. So as I open those up and I might make changes, maybe this gets approved or completed, I can update that guy. It would then fall off of my list the next time I refresh this or come into my dashboard. So this is a really great way to curate information and have it come to you instead of having to search out each of those permits that need reviews or have different requirements or conditions. All of that information can be brought to you. And this can be customized configured for each user. So, if me in the building department only wants to see certain information, great. And then my colleague over in planning and zoning wants to see different information, he or she can do the same here. All right. I do also, shifting gears a little bit, want to touch on some of the GIS capabilities as well. You'll see if I open up this GIS module, we have our maps that are designed to, work and feel like any other GIS application that you would use if you use, maybe Pictometry or ArcView or Esri or something like that. This has a lot of the same functionality without having to leave the program. So you'll see it gives us a high level of our municipality here. We have all of our different layers. We can incorporate those either by getting a shape file from your GIS engineer, or if you have your layers published out to a public location, we can incorporate them here with a live link just as another layer here. So you can see I can toggle each of those layers on and off. I can toggle the opacity, so if I want to make it a little bit easier to see, I can manage that. We also bring in a lot of nationally, publicly and state available layers here. So we talk to your county, we talk to the state, we talk to the federal government and get a lot of different things. So we have some census information like age, income, net worth. I'll give that a second to draw here. So you'll see that. And if we expand out, we have a key indicating some of the different ranges there. We get aerials from Bing, Google, Esri, that's publicly available. And then, of course, anything else that you can provide, we would be able to incorporate here. But Esri, aerials, FEMA, the census data, and like your zoning would be the most common here. What's really great about this is that being in the same system as Municity and relying on the same database, I can navigate here. I can select a property just by clicking on it, and I can open up the full parcel record. And that brings me to the property with all of its history and items and all of that information. What's really nice also is I can use this button that says Get a Butter to set a radius to put into a list all of the adjoining properties or adjacent properties here. So you'll see those are in a list. I can export that to Excel or CSV, or I can generate a PDF mailing list of all of those owners. So if you're doing neighbor notifications for planning and zoning board, or if you're getting a variant and you need to notify individuals, this is a great way to get that done quickly. You'll see it spits out onto an Avery format each of those different property owners. Let me clear some of that information up here. What's also great about this is we have the ability to display other records here as well. So going back to my console here, if I pull up, maybe a result of all of my expired permits and I want to see where those are, I have a button just to show those right on the map. And you'll see we have our little blue icons indicating where those would be here. So I want to clear that out and maybe see all complaints that have been issued in the past couple months. I can do the same thing, say from April 1st. And I can show those on the map, and that gives me a nice little heat map of the different activity. So at a glance, maybe you can see where a lot of new building is taking place, where you've got code enforcement issues. Maybe you want to send out another patrol in that area to maybe target that area a little bit differently. So it gives you a nice visual representation of that data. And then, of course, I can click on any of these points, and I can open up that complaint or that permit record just by hitting the open button. We'll wait for that to open up here so I can close it. And that would be our complaint. Let me clear that here. What's also nice here is this can be used for asset tracking. So if I do my quick view, I can show all of my different assets on the map here. I can click on one of those guys, get some information about it. So if I want to see all of my outfalls or all of my catch basins, signs, sewer openings, you name it, we can plot those on the map. You can open that guy up. And then that record can be managed. So if you're doing MS4 inspections, or if your assets require regular maintenance or inspections, this is a great way to manage that. You have a record for that asset. Under the items on the asset, we have an area where we can track inspections, work orders, if that needs to be repaired. Say a street light is out. You can have a work order created that would get routed to the appropriate individual to make that repair on that street light. Some communities also use this to create new assets. So I can use this create tool, hit the create asset button. I can navigate to a point on the map, click the spot where I want to create that and say what my new asset type is. So if you don't have great data currently of all of your asset information, you can take the initiative with Municity to capture all of that. So I'll just put my asset as a sewer, intersection Y, and then create that guy. We have a lot of communities that are using the mobile app for this exact purpose. They will walk down the street. They can pinpoint their location, create an asset right where they're standing. If they're standing next to a sign, that will automatically, geotag that record. And that way you can export that into a shapefile, or if anything else, just make a really nice complete record of all of your different signs, lights, outfalls, manhole covers, you name it. And you have all of that available in Municity, and for anybody you want to open up Municity to. We are running short on time, so let me just mention a few things really quickly here. We do have a Works module. We call that Municity Works, which is kind of tailored to the Department of Public Works, or your Public Works or Highway Department here. Those users have their own calendars. We have a triage area where work requests can be managed that are maybe publicly submitted. Those all come into this area here where they can be routed to DPW, or maybe routed into a code enforcement issue if that's more appropriate. We have the ability to manage roads, again, signs, work orders, vehicles. So if you guys have trucks, plows, tractors of any kind, you have records for all of those different things, capturing all that pertinent information. And then again, like anything else in the system, you can do your annual inspections on that vehicle. You can do your maintenance, your work orders, and get a really nice complete history of all of those and all of that information here. All right, I'm actually going to flip out into the public-facing version of Municity really quick. So we also offer something called Municity Connect, which is available for public access. What we saw up to this point was for internal use only, so it's all secure, all, you're behind a password, so anything you don't want to show is protected there. With Municity Connect, you can expose information to the public. So a user would come into the website that you've maybe published on your website. They can do a property search. We'll do something, again, a generic like Smith. There's always a Smith here. I can, as the resident, find that on the map. I can open up my property record, and I can see good information about it. So this all comes from Municity. You as the community can determine how much you want to show to the resident here. So at minimum, we tend to show the assessment data. So, their parcel ID, their zoning information, property class, any valuation, or, again, that physical information, what kind of heat they have, the year built, all of that. If you choose, we can also expose the activity on the property, so any permits, violations, certificates, things along those lines. You can expose that detail so residents can look it up themselves, saving a little bit of foot traffic into the office here. This is also where residents can report a service request. So if, excuse me. Oh, looks like something went wrong with my demo site here. You can choose what type of service request you want to submit. So, for example, if my sidewalk hasn't been plowed, or there's a pothole in front of my house, I can choose my type here, enter a description, create that record here, and that gets routed into Municity, where you're able to take a look at it, and you can route it to either the Highway Department, Public Works, or route that into a code enforcement issue if it falls into that category. We also have the ability for residents to apply for permits. Again, if you choose, it's not available by default, but this is something that would be configured by you and determined by you as to whether or not you do want to do this. So we give them a nice little form here where all the required fields that they would need to fill out, they can go down the steps, select a contractor. So any of those contacts that you've got in your Municity database, they can search for those and add them to their application. There's an area to upload plans and documents, and then pay fees as well. So the payment can be handled all through this portal as well. We work with PayPal and a number of other vendors. If you have a vendor that you're working with currently, chances are we can work with them, or we have others that we can recommend if need be. The application process in Municity Connect is extremely customizable. So a lot of communities start small with simple permits that don't require any reviews. So maybe you have just like a fire, brush burning permit, or I'm just doing some electrical work or plumbing, changing out fixtures. I can get a permit right on the spot here without even coming into the office. We do have some communities that go a little bit more advanced, that they're doing, I'm thinking of one in Massachusetts in particular, that does septic abandonment and sewer connection applications here. So they had an ordinance that everybody on a certain block had to abandon their sewer or septic system. But in order to reduce the traffic, they said, we're going to do it all online. So there's several permits that go through, several fees that have to be paid, all the different reviews that happen. All of that activity and that back and forth with the resident happens online, and it's reduced their foot traffic dramatically. So it's been really nice in that respect. So you can get as simple or sophisticated as you want, or you don't have to do permits at all. It all depends on you as the municipality. Okay, so we are up to it at noon here. So before I let you go, I want to just show my contact information. Oops. Sorry, let me just pull it up here. Hopefully you can see that. Sorry. There you go. My name again is Tom Baumgartner. You can reach me at this email address or just call the phone number listed below. Dan Foster is our sales general manager. You can contact him below for more information. Or, of course, our marketing team will be following up with you following the presentation, so you can see if you have any additional questions or anything like that. You can route your questions to them, and they will get a hold of me or Dan, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. And I know we've covered a lot of different things quickly and at a very high level today. If you have any additional questions or you'd like to see a more targeted information or a demonstration, definitely feel free to reach out. There's a lot more we can show you in a lot more detail. So we'd be happy to accommodate if there's anything you'd like to follow up on. So before we sign off for the day, is there any other questions or any questions that anybody has? Let me check the online here. Oh, looks like there's just problems with the phone early on. All right. So if no questions, again, feel free to reach out to any one of those, any one of us here, or again, our marketing team will be reaching out, and we'll be happy to follow up with you and provide additional information if you need, if need be. So with that, I'll let you go. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and thanks for attending. Take care. Bye.